The first item tonight, we have a Pennsylvania DCED report and presentation on the Horsham Fire Company Emergency Medical Service EMS Division.
If council remembers, well, some of you that were on council in early 2023, the fire company approached the township to see if we would sign off for them for a peer-to-peer technical assistance study with DCED for them, and you did. Council did agree to do that. We did sign off, and they have completed that, and they are here tonight to share the results. And I'll let Chief Greenberg go into a little bit more of an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you, members. Oh, we want to be at the...
Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you, members of council, for allowing us to present tonight. As Mr. Walker indicated, this has been an ongoing process. Even though you signed the paperwork in 2023, we started this process in 2021. Due to coming out of COVID and some challenges on the state level, we really didn't get this kicked off till 2023. So we're thrilled to be able to have these folks present tonight. Presenting tonight from the state, from DCED, is Chief Floyd. He's from Harrisburg, and he'll be doing the fire presentation. But first will be I know. Ken Hallendahl, formerly of Cheltenham Township EMS, but now still working in the EMA coordinator as the EMA coordinator for Cheltenham Township. So we know him very well professionally, but he was asked to do the study, and he'll be up here soon with his findings. So without further ado, Ken.
Excuse me, I'd like to introduce myself as well and,
Oh, okay.
and give a brief introduction of our consultants,
Okay.
if I may. Ann Weaver-Morrow, Local Government Policy Specialist, and support the Emergency Services Program. So the Policy Specialist through the Governor's Center facilitates and works with municipalities across the state with the letters of intent to have technical assistance, whether that's through a study or requesting guidance for mergers or consolidations, regionalizations. So Ken Hallendahl and Floyd Wise are two of our consultants. We currently have 15 on staff that support and help us. I'd like to give just a brief background on both the consultants, and then I'll allow them to go ahead and present their findings and recommendations to you. I will ask if there's any questions, they can either answer them during the presentation or when they're completed. And also at the end, should you desire further technical assistance, a letter of intent would need to be required to come through the center again for us then to support you with any of the recommendations that they're providing you or any other assistance that you may need help with. A letter of intent would be required then, okay? So Ken Hallendahl has over 40 years of experience with emergency medical services. He was named Cheltenham Township Emergency Medical Service First Director and Chief of Operations, where he worked until his retirement until 2022. Deputy Chief Floyd Wise has 25 years of experience at the Harrisburg Bureau of Fire. He holds a prestigious Executive Fire Officer designation from the National Fire Academy, a testament to his advanced study and leadership within the field. He has an official designation as a Chief Fire Officer from the Center of Public Safety Excellence, a nationally recognized party that accredits fire officers. Okay, with that, Ken?
Good evening, all. It's good to see so many friends. I hope we're still friends when I'm done. You can have the first slide.
You gotta keep the
Can you
mic
hear him?
close though, please. Keep the mic close to you.
Okay.
You can hold it if you want, that's more convenient.
Okay, so this is our program. If we can go to the next one. What we did was a management review of Horsham EMS. I think it's a great idea. I think more services should do it. Population, square miles, you already know, so we can go to the next one. This is the scope of what our program was and what we did. So the current service is adequate, doing a good job. Coverage is good. You can see what you have currently. Part of the reason I put that up there is because I think part of what everybody wanted us to look at is what about next week and the next month after that. So we'll get to that. The vehicles were looked at, they're in good shape. They run a lot of calls. I think, I would ask the township to keep in mind that ambulances and fire trucks take a huge beating because you park them, you let them sit, and then you get in them and you go, and then you park them. So in capital budgeting, keep in mind replacements. Next. Very jealous of your building. There's a bunch of people that know Cheltenham's building. It was condemned in 1980, and when we started EMS in 1982, they uncondemned it. So your buildings are beautiful, and they're in good shape, well taken care of. The insides are adequate for everything you need to do. Creature comforts are important with the amount of time being spent, and the buildings were clean, so that's all positive. Substation next door, same thing. You're going to need to expand at some point, I think. This is 50% of that's right off the Horsham website about the expansion. For the next slide, if you see that, you've got this wonderful area that is going to be developed, bringing lots of jobs, lots of people, and I guarantee you an increase in ambulance calls. So one of the things that's been done successfully around the state is part of the development deal is maybe building another substation if that is an appropriate spot for it. We, as Ann said, we can come back and look at the appropriate spot, but that's something to think about because your call volume is going to go up when that area is done. Aging population. I'm one of them. And the population is aging, and that will increase call volume. If you go to the next slide, something that should concern you. So I've been doing this program for about 3 years. When we started, Pennsylvania was the 11th oldest state in the U.S. We are now number 5. So increased age, increased call volume, you're now going to have at least 2 reasons that call volume is going to go up. Now's not the time for me to get into things like mental health and drug abuse, all of which is also causing increased call volume. Those were the good old days. And anybody, I showed this someplace and this very young person came up and said, "Who are those 2 old people?" And I went, "Thanks, forget it." Well, we all started, a lot of us did, watching Johnny and Roy on Emergency. This is the system now, but not in Horsham. So every single other presentation I have done, bar none, like these, financing is an issue. Now, I'm not going to say you don't have a need for some more money in various areas, but council, you're doing a good job. You are 10 years ahead of where other people are. Other people are being blindsided that they have to go from a $50 or a $200 a year contribution to $1 million. So you're way ahead. That's why your ambulance is running efficiently. Well-managed response times are unbelievable. I was just in one part of the county where it takes 20 minutes to get the ambulance on the road, not to the call, on the road. The way that the officers have set it up is absolutely excellent. Staffing is a huge problem. We're going to talk about some of the reasons in a minute. It doesn't appear to be at Horsham. And I think it's because, go back to the building, the living conditions, the way people are treated, and they're getting fair pay. In other parts of the county. I was just doing one of these, and they lost 3 people in 1 week. 2 to Sam's Club and 1 to Sheets. Better money, better pay. That's not the case here, so good job. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on numbers, but you should be thrilled that you have good staffing, because we are losing EMTs and paramedics every day of the week, and lots of them. The scariest part is, people my age are supposed to age out. We're not supposed to be getting up at 3 in the morning carrying 400-pound people. But the biggest loss of people in EMS right now is in the 38 to 42-year-old gap. And that is the next generation of officers that's supposed to take over. So you've done a good job by maintaining a pretty steady staff and some good officers. This is all what I just said. You're going to need to increase staff for all the reasons that I showed you. You're right on the edge now. If you said, hey, what's the best thing I could do? I would say give them another crew. My guess is nighttime, but that's an officer's question, but they're running ragged, and another crew would be helpful. Remember this slide, because I'm going to come back and talk about it, because it's something that has perplexed me all the way through. You do a great job managing money. I didn't see any waste of money, and the way the system is set up, I don't think the fire department could waste money, and that is not common. There are people still buying chrome wheel covers and, $10,000 air horns and not being budget smart. I didn't see any of that with EMS. So you'll see some stats later, but again, the response times, the responses to calls, and the way they're covered shows fantastic management of time and personnel. And it's great to see it. In fact, I think we should try and hire away some of the people running it to come to work for DCED and go show people how to do it. So this is a concerning factor, and it is happening across the state. People know that Horsham is well run. People know that the ambulance will respond, and they're taking advantage of you. And this is occurring across the state. They know that if their ambulance can't get out, Horsham will be there to cover. Look at those numbers. I honestly thought that Jason had given me the wrong number when I saw it went from 505 to 900 calls. 51.8% increase. In a minute, I'm going to ask for your help with that, because they've already tried. Next slide. 28%, or over a quarter of their responses are out of town. Unconscionable. And I know they have tried to fix it. Now, half of that number, maybe, but I think they're going to need your help. I think you need to talk to your borderline municipalities and say, you're using a lot of our stuff here, why? And this is not just happening in Horsham. We have the same kind of thing going up in Warren County. So it is not going to get better. It's going to get worse. On purpose, I'm not going into details. You can get that from the officers of where they're spending their time going. But I think that should be a real concern. The opposite side of that is that in all of the calls they run, I believe it was either a half or 1% of the calls in Horsham do not get covered by Horsham Ambulance. That's fantastic. But you need to fix this, or it won't be 1% anymore. I'd like to see them recruit staff, including right now they have kind of a full staff. Word is out that Horsham's a good place to work. Volunteers, I heard a lot of frustration. There aren't any, or maybe one volunteer on the EMS side. Being from Cheltenham, we see it even worse than you do. People come in for a year, get their EMT at our expense, and go to work somewhere else. That's an issue. I understand the fire company's frustration, but if there is something that can be done working with the high schools or anybody like that to maybe get some volunteers, that would help also. Not a priority, work on it. Atmosphere and working environment. I know I brought that up a couple times, but you have no idea how important that is, and they're doing a good job. The EMS is the bastard child of fire, EMS, and police. We're always the ones that are forgotten. Policemen can usually see whether they've done something good or locked up a bad person. Fire people can say, you know, we saved the foundation. Sorry. And, but EMS does a great job, takes somebody to a hospital, and leaves, in many cases, not knowing the outcome. Once in a great while, somebody comes back and says, wow, you guys did a great job, thank you, but 90% of the time, they don't. So this kind of stuff is really important. And I would say this to the board, this is for you. Remember to say thank you, please. And not just on the big calls where a bunch of people are saved, but stop in at one of their monthly meetings, do something, say thank you. As an old guy in EMS, I know how much our people appreciate it, and I'm sure these guys would too. Why do they need your help? 70% below cost. I did not look deep into the financing, but I would be willing to bet Horsham is like every other ambulance. They're doing a good job on billing and collections, and that means they're collecting 50%. They're collecting some portion of 50% of every bill that they mail out. Anybody who's in business knows you'd be out of business. You're preventing that. There's the real numbers. Costs have gone up 70%, and Medicare reimbursement 27%. I don't think I have to explain that. Costs are going to continue to go up. Call volume is going to continue to go up. They're going to continue to need your support to make sure that they can handle the calls. Okay. Next. I wanted to show this because in my regular slide program, one of the things I suggest is the Horsham model because it works. And I know a couple of people have called Jason from God's country and said, how do you make it work? This is a model EMS service for the state, and you should be proud of that. And believe me, I've been places, and some of the people that I talk to here know that, where please don't ever let me need an ambulance. Horsham is not one of those places. This was my suggestion, concern that I would ask the board and the fire company to talk about. You provide, without going into great detail, benefits and their budget, and it works very well. And you have a good group of officers right now running the fire company and EMS. My concern is that you have no input on that whatsoever. If these people vote out the current staff and you get people that you don't get along with or mismanage the funds or make changes that are not productive for the people of Horsham, the way it is currently written, my understanding is you have no input on who the chief is. I would suggest that you look at that. I'm not saying how to change it. We're happy to come back and talk about that if you wish. And I think there would be benefits if they were true employees, both ways. But I think you should look at that knowing that Right now, it's totally up to the fire company with a lot of your money. And yeah, I put this in, not a reflection. You are blessed. If you can keep these people forever, you're great. You're great. But, you know, these guys will laugh. Even I had to step down after 40 years. Sooner or later, you know, they're going to go fishing and stay out and stay fishing. So, there are some talks about plans for 3 to 5 years. I would suggest that sooner than later, you commit those to writing so that everybody is on the same page. If the fire company thinks they need 5 new ambulances and the board thinks they need 2, you need to get together over the next short period of time, because I think in under a year, you're probably going to have to add more crews. I think that is coming. We can look at that in more detail if you want help from DCED, but with the staff you have right now and the facts and figures they gave me, I think you can make some good decisions. But I would look at buildings, ambulances, personnel, response times, and again, why are you spending so much time going to Upper Dublin and various other places? The leadership's great. Keep it that way. I don't know how you do that, but you know, I just wanted to read it that Horsham EMS has maintained a relationship similar to EMS. If people did it like Horsham did it, there wouldn't be a crisis in this state. And I mean that. I mean, there would be people that would not have the fiscal resources to do what you have done, but there are still places I go where the head of borough council or the head of the commissioners doesn't know anybody in EMS, and that's not true here. And that is a blessing for both sides. Work to reduce the mutual aid calls. I know the ambulance has tried that. And what will be difficult is that the relationship that you have with the people sitting in the audience tonight is unique and not the norm. It's way better. So when you talk to your fellow commissioners in other towns, they've tried to fix it and can't. They're going to need your help. You're going to need to work as a team, or it will get worse, not better. There are some things that suggest that because of staffing of other ambulances, because of the age thing, that you may want to look at some increased funding for personnel in 2025. Again, didn't get that deep in the weeds, but just looking at some of the numbers and the responses, I would encourage you to have a meeting with the officers and figure out times that aren't being covered. You have a good system in place. Just to let you know, there are multiple ways now to fund EMS. Obviously, you can increase the fire and EMS fee. Mandatory subscriber fee is something that I'm seeing coming up across the state. I don't like it, but Ross, Westview, in Allegheny County, you now have to be a subscriber, you have to pay, and then they waive part of the bill. Increased billing and increased donations. I think you can help with pushing donations as you talk to your constituents. It's cheap insurance. It's a good way to go. The average, and I forgot to ask, is about 30% of, if you're doing well on donations and subscriptions, 30% of your families join. So there's 70% that do not. And I just want to thank the team. Every single question I asked, be it a Saturday night or a Friday afternoon, I got answers. It was incredible. Jason couldn't have done it without your help. Thank you, Lee. Much appreciated. It was It made me nervous to do this because I know so many of these people, and boy, am I thrilled I got to do it, because you really have a great team, and it is working well. My compliments to all of you also for making it work. You couldn't do it without them. They couldn't do it without you. So I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have.
I have a few questions for you. So first of all, I want to say thank you for this report. It was very comprehensive and pretty incredible. And thank you all for the work that you guys do. It's awesome to see the stellar performance that you guys are carrying out every day. So it's much appreciated. When you talk about personnel leaving, where do they go? You say you talked about Sam's Club and Sheets. Are people going all over the place or staying in healthcare?
Not so much in this area, but when you get a little bit more rural, the pay is better at Sheets, the benefits are better at Sheets, the work hours are better. In EMS, and even with Horsham to some extent, well more than 50% of the people have 2 jobs within EMS just to make ends meet. So they are leaving for better money and better benefits, and you get a set schedule and you don't get called back for overtime or can't leave because somebody didn't show up.
Okay, thank you. And then you talked about Act 37 and Medicaid. Sounds like we can't refuse to remain in accordance with Act 37. So what is like your department or Department of Human Services doing to fix the lack of Medicare payments or Medicaid payments?
Not much. I mean, I'm not going to speak for DCED because it's really a combination federal state thing, but every year there's a little increase, but you saw the numbers, 70 versus 20 something. We beg, you can sign a contract with insurance companies for having them pay you, but it'll be at a much reduced rate. So no one signs those contracts, and we bill at the appropriate level. Part of the issue with that is that people get a check in the mail. It does not come straight to EMS. It goes to the person. Some people send it in. Some people go, ooh, and keep it. And I can't tell you how many elderly people I've spoken to that have said, I thought it was insurance and it paid my heating bill. I can't go after those people. I can get you more details, but Medicare has gone up a very small number every year.
Okay, and then what about Act 37? Because I know no one in this audience would sacrifice a human life if they had a chance to save it. And at the same time, Act 37 doesn't seem like it provides any enforcement mechanisms if we get to a point where we're having catastrophic results within our own community.
Two answers to that. One is the Act says that you must respond if dispatched. So the board can't say tomorrow, Horsham, you can't go to Upper Dublin anymore. So that's out of the question. As far as enforcement goes, yes, there is an enforcement side, but in parts of the state, I was just in a county that has a total of 15 EMS providers, and the average age is 71. There's some things they can't enforce. I mean, they could, but then there'd be no EMS. Unfortunately, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, EMS and fire protection are the responsibility of the municipality. Now, the sad part is it says that, but it doesn't say you have to pay for it. You're doing the right thing. There are many municipalities that are not.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just worried if we have a 51% increase over 4 years, it's hard to use 2020 in the projection, but if we have a continuous increase in calls, it seems like there's going to be some hard conversations being had that the state should be having as well, not just the township to township.
I'm not sure I know what the good answer is. Just mutual aid is one thing that I strongly believe in, and Horsham's come to Cheltenham, Cheltenham's come to Horsham. But there are people taking advantage of it, and that is not right. I don't know that, that would be a question in private, are you being taken advantage of? But in another county, people have all but said, well, we know so-and-so will get out. So Monday to Friday, we're not going to have a crew. That's not right. And is there technically enforcement for that? Yes. Once you sign to become a state certified agency, then you have promised to put at ALS or BLS level an ambulance 24/7. If the state enforced that, we'd have people dying left and right.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks again for the presentation. I appreciate all the work.
To follow up, for the neighboring community calls, we had numbers from 2020, and then 2021 was the last that was documented there. I know we have our fire company update coming up next. I'm looking at Lee. Do we have numbers for, 22, 23, and into 24 so far, like projections?
I can provide some of that to you.
Okay, and if not tonight, later.
I'll absolutely get you.
And along similar lines, kind of a breakdown of, I know we have a list of which communities, but what the percentages are, like who's asking for that most often.
That I don't have tonight, but we can get that.
That's fine, understandable. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Our fire company update?
Nope, you have Floyd coming up, right? So Ken did the EMS side, and Floyd is coming up to do the fire side.
So Mr. Hellendale did a fantastic job with already keying in on a few areas that I'd like to discuss. It's rather unusual for us from a study standpoint that we're able to kind of engage with the community and the fire departments on both fire and EMS services simultaneously. It would be beneficial to more communities in the state if they would look at the balance of those services at the same time versus separately. And the reason being is traditionally throughout the state, unfortunately, many of the fire services shy away from emergency medical service responses, maybe do not train and fund those. Your community is, as Mr. Hellendale said, probably a decade ahead of dealing with the combined medical pre-hospital care needs, as well as providing fire and rescue services for your communities that many communities out there are behind on. They're not even considering integration. So I want to first lead off by saying that I was very impressed with the quality of services and the level of strategic planning that has occurred in the fire department to date to position you for providing very, very ample services for your residents. Like I said, it's very unusual to look at both the combined and fire and EMS service, as most fire departments are very traditional. They don't worry about pre-hospital care. However, with that, unfortunately, is a burden. And throughout my report, of which I'm sure you have the paper copy, the statistics show that even though you maintain a minimum staffing level of combined firefighter, EMTs, and firefighter paramedics, there's a significant drawdown on those resources because of the volume of emergency medical care response. Now, understand from the risk assessment standpoint that when you look at your call numbers, the National Fire Incident Reporting statistics, your biggest burden in your community is medical care, right? We talked about an aging population in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is projected to continue. So we can suggest that the burden for response is still going to be on emergency medical service care. And with expansion of the township, that's probably going to continue as an upward trend. With that, we have to still balance the ability to respond to fire and EMS calls. So far, you're doing that with a combined career service of firefighter, EMT, paramedics talked about, and your volunteers that are left. First of all, thank you to the volunteers that maintain in the township. They are and should be and need to be supported, which is why they have an element within my report that I'm going to discuss and talk about. So, the drawdown on your EMS, we discussed, and I discussed with Chief Greenberg, would increasing your staffing help? And the short answer is no. Because if you place another MICU in service, that MICU is going to be going to all of your mutual aid partners. That 28% mutual aid response, I located that as well, same data. And so roughly more than a quarter of your time. And look, I get being good local government partners with your neighbors. I understand we want to support each other, but you have a significant cost investment in your personnel for those medical units to be going out, and you're eating that cost. At DCED, we obviously preach intergovernmental agreements and shared services. So I think that you really need to look at this from a mutual aid standpoint. You're going to have a very honest heart-to-heart conversation with your other local governments to say, if we continue to send our resources to you, we need some type of reimbursement. 10% of the budget, 15% of the budget, you have to calculate out what that contract would look like. But that probably is not sustainable for you to continue to fund other local government issues. You're doing great with your township. So beyond that, if we look at hiring more personnel and placing them on EMS response units, you're not really fixing the fire response model problem because they're on a medical call. So you need to take a step, and it's somewhat courageous, and it's a big ask, but you're going to start to fund, and my report says as an opportunity to fund a career fire position. And I'm a kind of an incrementalist. I think that we have to take small bites of this. Local government likes small investments versus large investments. So the initial goal would be within this first year is to add one career position per shift. You have 4 operating shifts across your fire and EMS services. One career position that is 100% dedicated to being on a fire apparatus. They are not to be moved off that unit to an EMS unit at any time. Their sole priority is to maintain the availability of a pumping piece, some type of unit with a pump with water to respond to fire calls. Now, the benefit with that is by hiring firefighter EMTs or firefighter paramedics, they can still respond as a QRS service. So they still maintain the ability to respond to medical calls, but not as a transport-capable unit. And it keeps a fire truck available for response in your township or mutual aid. Now, beyond that, obviously, we want to talk about supplementation of our volunteers. That's important as well. I looked at your stipend process, and in the state, looking at some model stipend processes that are out there, what you're paying your volunteers probably should be increased to keep that value of them. And I myself really favor the volunteer that's willing to be staffed in quarters. So that person that's available to be in the firehouse to make up, especially the evening, that staffing number, increase that number maybe by $25 again from what it is right now, and get the value of that volunteer who gives up their time away from their family so that a fire apparatus gets out the door to whatever a neighbor's need may be. The really, really critical thing, right? This is beyond the career position I talked about. The other thing that I noted, and if you want to take a step that's been very popular with local government in our state, is to provide property and school tax relief for the volunteers. Now, these need to be legislated separately, and they need to be legislated differently. The legislation for your property tax reduction can happen at your level. You can ordinance that for any volunteer. It would only be for volunteers that live within this municipality. So they would get the benefit of either partial or full property tax relief. The school tax would have to be legislated through the school districts. In the state, most school districts have been very welcoming to providing partial or full school tax reduction for active volunteers. The State Fire Academy published, and if you look in my report, there's a hyperlink for a recruitment retention page that has all of the methods and how-to about how to ordinance and pass that legislation for property and school tax reduction for your active volunteers. Now, understand that is for active volunteers. You have to determine what the definition of that active volunteer is, and that can be done in conjunction with your leadership of your fire department to define that within the ordinance. That is just one more perk that can be provided to give our volunteers value without necessarily compensating them. And then beyond that, from the recruitment standpoint, it's one more reason that someone may consider. I would imagine in this area, property taxes could be significant. From a recruitment standpoint, that could easily draw someone in that says, hey, this is valuable to me to give up my time for my community and train and become a member of Horsham Fire and Rescue Services. So I added that in specifically to assist with the recruitment side of the house. In total analysis of your fire service, your facilities are outstanding. I literally work with communities where their fire trucks are housed in barns, and they have no funds for anything else. So your facilities are outstanding. The leadership and the staff that I've worked with, Chief Greenberg, outstanding. You've got a forward-thinking person that's really going to get you through these next 5 years, particularly looking at the demographic growth of your township. Your policies and directives seem to be in line with best practices. The only concern I have, and the reason that I only have 2 points in this is, and this is not unusual for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, your manpower, your staffing is stressed, right? Volunteers are not always available, right? They work, or they move from the area, or they have job changes, or they have children, right? So they come and go. That's an ebb and flow. Your numbers can be up, your numbers can be down. So it's to a point where, as the local elected officials, as the councilmen, you're going to have to start to consider, how do we fund, when the time comes, additional career staffing? And there is that balance between providing for a significant EMS response, but we also have to provide for a fire truck that can respond to our community as well, right? It's a balance. And I think this is something that a lot of communities in Pennsylvania are going to have to come to grips with. Unfortunately, myself as a consultant gets to be the bearer of bad news that it comes with a financial cost. And then unfortunately, that's placed on you to understand, or how do we come up with that. I did include in there that some possible funding mechanisms, right? Because I don't like to come in here and say, hey, it's your bill, it's your problem. Some funding mechanisms that are available. Number one, you could increase your fire millage tax rate by 0.5 millage. You have a very low tax millage rate when you look at the average of the state of Pennsylvania. You're well below average. So there's a little margin in there, and 0.5 millage would not be a significant increase for most homeowners. That money could be directed to support either the stipend process, or it could be used to support that growth of that singular career position in the fire department. And beyond that, you can also look into SAFER grants. The SAFER grant through the United States Fire Administration allows for use of that to fund both career positions and volunteer recruitment, retention, things such as stipend programs. That money can be earmarked to help support some of the costs for manpower. So again, I really want to reiterate that your fire and rescue and EMS services, from what I've seen overall, just in my analysis, are well ahead of the quality that we're seeing throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's not to say that there's not a change coming, there's not growth or change needed, but you have planned well. However, you've gotten to the position that you're in. Great job. Hopefully, with our assistance, we can continue to kind of trend you in the right direction. Any questions from anyone? Yes.
Once again, awesome presentation. Appreciate all the work. I just got to beat the dead horse on the Act 37 real quick. The report says this is occurring throughout the Commonwealth. Would I be correct in assuming that the state legislators are aware of these Act 37 issues?
Yes, the state legislature is very aware through the State Fire Commissioner's Office of the challenges of both fire and EMS throughout the state. Unfortunately, if you know anything about the Commonwealth legislature, it can be a slow-moving process. They have numerous issues that they have to work through. Obviously, we try to consult with them as well and build relationships and kind of guide that. The Fire Commissioner's Office is doing the same thing at their level, at the state level, trying to develop that necessary legislation to assist career and volunteer services. Unfortunately, it's just a slow process. And at DCED, administratively, we really don't have a lot of control over what happens at the Capitol.
Okay. Because it seems non-actionable, the the township conversations, just with the budgetary constrictions that people have, it seems like there needs to be some sort of like automatic funding trigger if you go above a certain threshold of out of community calls, because then we're
Yep.
providing a county and Commonwealth service to other communities. And it seems like the burden shouldn't be on Horsham residents. There should be state mechanisms for providing the funding, especially with an all-volunteer, predominantly volunteer force. Putting the burden on volunteers to write grants seems
I will add,
too much.
one toolbox on the EMS side, and Ken, within the state legislature, they have allowed for EMS authorities, correct? So that, an EMS authority would allow you to share the emergency medical service funding burden legally through definition of authority in the state. The fire service, they did not allow creation of authorities yet. That legislation is still being argued and fought. So as it is right now, there's no, I don't want to say state government formula for how do we get parties in a room for this. It's more your local government needs to work with this local government, and then through solicitors work on a shared service agreement. And it's very, I don't want to say gentleman's agreement, but it's not going to be regulated at a state level. Does that make sense?
It does.
There's a better tool for EMS, and Ken, if you want to present anything on that, than there is for the fire, unfortunately.
I mean, what you're talking about is really EMS. Fire mutual aid is, and Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, is not out of control like EMS is. The first state authority was set up in Lancaster County. So you could work with all the local municipalities. There are different funding ways to set up an authority. It can be by number of people, number of real estate plots, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is, being frank, and it's going on in Lancaster now, is the whole county agreed to the authority. Two cities or whatever said, we don't want to participate. They're still getting EMS service for free. And everybody's up in arms, and the chiefs of EMS are saying, when the tones go off and we're sent, we have to go. Yeah, but we're paying. Same thing you're doing now. The authority might be a good way to go if you can get all those people involved. Because what's nice about an authority is Horsham can still keep, your management team and your management team. There's an authority board. You can have an authority manager who can help do billing, and there's a lot of advantages. Happy to come back and talk about it, but get the feel for your other municipalities, because if 3 say yes and 1 says no, you're calling it something different, but you're still in the same boat.
Okay, I'll leave that to them to talk about. I was just curious. I appreciate all the work. Just blown away. It's very good. Thank you.
Good. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you for those reports, and thank you to all of you in the audience for all your hard work and giving the ability to get such a great report, so thank you. So, now are we ready to move on to the fire company? All righty.
It's a tough act to follow, isn't it? So thank you again for this opportunity. This is
A similar presentation to what I've done in years past. However, it's somewhat scaled back due to the already almost hour that we've been in front of you on behalf of the fire company. So we'll move through, and obviously you can stop me and ask questions whenever you may have one. So this is just a recap. I know there's some new members on council. The fire company is divided into 4 divisions: fire, EMS, fire, police, and auxiliary. Fire EMS are pretty self-explanatory. Fire police, they go out to fire scenes and provide scene security for both the fire department as well as the residents or whatever we need them to do. They also do their own details. You'll see them out directing traffic for the farmers market and so forth and so on. So the auxiliary is a support organization that raises a little bit of money, not a whole lot, raises a little bit of money for the fire company to just kind of put back into the general coffers. Our apparatus have moved around a little bit in the last year. Our rescue engine, the ladder, and the brand new engine are down at Battalion 1. Due to the lack of volunteers in this end of the town, there was no need to have two frontline fire apparatus up here. So we just have the Quint and 2 ambulances staged over at Battalion 2 next door. Volunteer staffing, we're about 15 active members now. We're down from 20. Some people have moved away, some life change, and so we're down a little bit. Our career staffing is still the same, two dual service EMS crews, 24 hours a day, 1 crew in each station. There's a 3rd crew weekdays, 9 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. So during the week, during the day, we have 7 firefighter EMTs or paramedics, a combination working, 5 in the Meeting House Road Station and 2 next door. Our budget, on pace to finish, as we always do, on pace to finish at budget levels for both fire and relief. Just a quick reminder of what the Relief Association is. The Relief Association is a separate entity from the fire company, although you have to be a member of the fire company to be a member of the Relief Association. That is an association that is given money from the state and the money comes from out of state insurance writings. So it's actually opposite of what you might think would happen. The more built up and more affluent communities usually get more of the relief money versus some of the people that are less fortunate in the further out and further north sections of the state. They may not get as much as the folks in southeastern Pennsylvania and the Pittsburgh area. So to talk a little bit more about statistics, right? This is through 3 quarters of the year, through September 30th. Total EMS dispatches was 2,846. That's up 12% from last year. Mutual aid covers, which you ask, 758. So that's another 200 up from 2021 to 2020 through 3 quarters of 2024. And that's up 5% from just last year. We've transported 1,929 people to the hospital, and that's up 18%. And we've scratched 107 calls, and that's up 29%. But that's kind of inversely proportional because you run more calls, you're having more opportunity to scratch. From the fire side, total fire calls, we were at 530. We're on pace, and then obviously I ran October's numbers, and we had 84 calls in October. So we're on pace to be well over 700 calls for the year. So we'll probably be close to 800 by the time the year ends. Some future considerations, staffing in general, volunteer and career staffing, right? That's what we've talked about at great length tonight. And longevity plans for the fire company. How are we going to financially and operationally sustain what we have and potentially build to what we really need? If you were to ask me what keeps me up at night, this is that, right? I don't worry about fire and EMS calls. We have great people here that handle those. But from an administrator and a chief of an organization this size, that's the stuff that keeps me up at night, is wondering, are we going to be able to sustain this in 6 months, a year, 5 years, right? Because I don't want to put our people in any kind of harm due to lack of staffing. So these folks are family, and I'm not trying to pull a tear, but these folks are family, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that they're safe and that they get to go home to their families, and that's what's important. And then I'll just open it up to any questions for me from you folks.
I have a couple questions.
Sure, go ahead.
So the calls are up, year over year, it seems like. Are those proportionate with the population increase? Is it due to that, to the aging population, to all the above, or is there anything else that you just kind of anecdotally notice?
Yeah, calls are just up. It's population based. It's based on more people, more problems, right? And that's an oversimplification, but that's really what it is. As the townships grow, not just Horsham, but as the townships grow, our mutual aid calls are up, right? We've been to 4 fires in the last week, right? And only one of them, or 2 weeks, only one of them has been in Horsham, right? So the more people that come to this area that move out of the city or wherever and come here and populate here, that's just more opportunity for more calls, both fire and EMS.
Scratch, is that the same thing as false alarm?
No, scratch is if we don't respond to the call. False alarm is the alarm did not work properly. That's usually on the fire side, unless it's a medical alert alarm. But a scratch is if we do not respond to the call. So that could be fire or EMS. Typically, we get a fire truck out for calls, although we have scratched a couple calls recently due to just, we've been out on ambulance calls. There's only so many people during the week, during the day to run calls. And a slide that I took out of this year's presentation is, in years past, if you remember, we averaged about 5.5 people on the apparatus, right? So if you take that into consideration with that we have 7 people working Monday through Friday, and we only average 5.5 on the truck, that almost guarantees that there's always an ambulance call, right? Because we're taking 2 people out of the mix. In addition, at night, even that we go down to 4. So if we're still averaging 5.5 over 24 hours and we go down to 4 career staff, that's only 1 volunteer. Now, we get more volunteers out than that, but that means that there's always an ambulance call. So we're a busy organization. I mean, we're running over 4,000 emergencies, for the organization. So we always have something responding somewhere, statistically speaking. In addition, our numbers have dropped this year. Instead of being 5.5, I think we're 5.1 now on the apparatus, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we used to be at 4.5 for people that didn't make the truck but were standing by in station. We're down to like 2. So again, our volunteer numbers are dropping, and there's just there's nobody to come in and replace those folks. When I joined the fire company 32 years ago, we were pulling people off the trucks to run the calls, right? Now we're begging them to come to the station. So a lot has changed in that time.
And then last question, I think. So false alarms make up I'm looking back at the presentation from the last speaker. False alarms appear to make up like a third or so of the calls. Is there any, I don't know, again, just any way to reduce the rate? So that's like a.
So we work really close with the fire marshal, with Matt Reinhardt, to work on some of those. Some of those are certainly preventable that, we struggle with both Matt and the fire company struggles with, because you have building owners and people that occupy these buildings that just really don't care. But, there's only so much we can do. Most people are pretty responsive, but again, big township, lots of calls, lots of fire alarm systems, lots of sprinkler systems, lots of CO detectors. Those are all calls for service that we have to respond to.
Are the false alarms more at like a business level or at like an individual home or?
No, usually at a commercial level, at a business level.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to take a moment while everyone was still in the room to thank you for your energy and effort, and the reports tonight were excellent and reflect really well on the work that you do day in and day out, so thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
All right, thank you for your time.
Again, thank you to all you folks for all your hard work and creating the opportunity to get such great reports. Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right, let's call tonight's meeting to order then and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item tonight is a public hearing on an ordinance amending the zoning code, Article VIR1, Low Density Residential District, to allow for additional development alternatives to include an open space option. Bill, do you have any comments on that? Or do you want me to read the opening statement first?
Yeah, and just, I see some faces out here from the Park Road area. So there's 2 hearings tonight. So one is just to clarify, the first one that we're having is on the R1 zoning, making some amendments on that. The second hearing right afterwards is changing zoning from a property on Park Road from planned industrial, PI, to residential, R1. So just to let everyone know, stick with us, there's 2 hearings.
Okay. So good evening. We'll now call to order a hearing on an ordinance which would amend the zoning ordinance to revise the development options for the R1 zoning district. The development options all require at a minimum a 1-acre building lot and significant open space. This hearing has been advertised as required by law. There's no stenographer present, but please remember not to speak until you're recognized by counsel. When you are recognized, please provide your name and address for the minutes. This hearing is your opportunity to learn about the ordinance and let council know if you have an opinion on the proposed ordinance. This ordinance amendment was generated by our staff, so I'll ask Mr. Gilday Walker to present the ordinance.
Okay, and Dennis, you can put up, we just have one slide of the area. Just for historical, Township did a major revision of our R1 zoning ordinance in 2016. We refer to this revision as a minor revision. It's mainly the parcels that were in our aircraft crash and noise overlay district that was repealed once the Navy base officially closed. There's sections in our R1 zoning that have not been, they're large lots, and it just hasn't been used. So staff is recommending to revise subsection C, which is our conservation option in R1, and add section D, which is an open space option. They're the same dimensionally. The zoning ordinance doesn't change. The minimum tract sizes are different. Section C is for 35 acres or more. Section D is for 95 acres or more. There's also in the ordinance revision a new buffer requirement of 50 feet along arterial and collector roads. There's also the amendment allows for 1 acre, but it requires a minimum of, when I say 1 acre, 1 acre lot homes, like just was built on the Oak Ridge property at County Line in Keith Valley. But it requires a minimum of 20% of a tract be preserved as common open space in lieu of building larger lot sizes in our R1 ordinance. Section C, the conservation option, also states that the open space must be one contiguous parcel. Section D, the open space option allows multiple parcels of open space, allowing the 20%. There's an additional fee for tree removal that is built into the ordinance, and those are the main points of the ordinance that unless Eric or Mary have something to add. Again, it's really we're already building. R1 allows 1 acre homes. If you see the yellow, it's Valley View Estates, which is built a while ago under our R1 zoning. Our R1 up at Keith Valley and County Line are 1 acre homes. So properties that if council does approve the amendments and revisions to the R1, the properties that could take advantage of it or be developed are basically 3 in town, and that's the Heffernan tract, which is PI right now. That's the next hearing. the Tornetta tract, R1 on Park Road, and then the Propato tract. There's two properties that the Propatos own on County Line Road in our R1 zoning. Those are the only properties that could take advantage and build under the R1 revisions.
Mary, do you have some comments, or Eric?
The only comments that I would add to that are just pulling up to a little bit more of an overview. In your R1 zoning district, you have the ability to, on any individual lot, to build a house that, on a lot of an acre or a little bit more than an acre. These two options, the conservation option, which is already in the ordinance, and the open space option, which is a new option, provide alternatives for larger tracts, because the township staff has been getting inquiries from people who are interested in developing on those larger tracts. And to protect the residents in that area, these options, they provide some incentive for the developer in terms of reduced woodland preservation, but then it also provides for a perimeter buffer around the developments so that there's protection between the actual new development and the existing homes. And I think that's an important factor.
Eric, do you have anything? Anybody from the audience have any questions or comments?
Or do you
Council
want
have
to,
any questions?
or do you want
Yes,
to wait
sir.
till after?
Yep.
Dan Golden, 232 Oak Hill Drive. Just wondering, how does... Can you hear me? Yep.
Well, we can hear you.
Dan Golden, 232 Oak Hill Drive. I was just wondering, how does this benefit the township? It seems to me that if these zoning changes and the amendment goes through, that those properties are going to be developed by about, I think the one is 82 acres, and the one, the Propato tract, where it says R1, I think that's over 100 acres. That's a lot of homes, and I'm wondering, how does that benefit the township?
I don't think Propato's over 100 acres. I don't, you can correct me.
No, Propatos is not, but I think he's referring to the
your-
Tornetta, the Tornetta tract.
Tornetta's over 100 acres. There is benefit to developers because they can concentrate their lots in the center more, which will save them money on infrastructure. But the benefits to the township are also great in that they will be providing the perimeter buffer, providing 20% of the lot in open space. If these lots were just divided up in cookie cutter fashion, there wouldn't be any open space. So there is advantages to the township in doing it in a conservation or open space method.
Right, there's advantages to changing the zoning, but if you don't change the zoning, you won't have to worry about the houses being built. Isn't that correct?
Well, I don't think that's correct at all, because we didn't, when we, the Keith Valley Road parcel was developed without this amendment.
But the one tract there of 100 acres, that's zoned commercial. So wouldn't they have to change the zoning for that one?
And that's the next hearing, but there is already an approved subdivision plan on that parcel for industrial development, and the staff's recommendation to council is that industrial development just doesn't mesh with that community.
Okay.
We really tried, these parcels are going to be developed, and we really tried to do the best that we can for the community. So we've even, the engineers plotted some of this out for us, and if you look at the PI parcel and we call the Propato parcel, the two of them combined, if this ordinance gets passed and a developer comes and builds 1 acre lots on those two, not the Tornetta, but on the PI and the Propato tract, total, I think, Eric, was something like 70 homes total. But when you talk about, I'm just comparing, so Horsham Valley Estates on Babylon Road, there's 94 homes in there. So it seems when you first, if developers come at us with plans, it's going to be like, wow, yeah, woods go to homes. No one likes that, but we can't stop that legally. And we're trying to do the best we can with large lot, single-family homes. I've been here a long time, and I've seen plans where everything from the Tornetta property through the Heffernan property, through the Oak Ridge property, actual plans, conceptual plans of 800 to 900 townhomes and apartments have come years ago. But, and thank God, years ago, they were told no, it wasn't going to happen. So we think, R1 is our lowest density residential district, and we think it keeps in the character of that area, just like Valley View is 1 acre, Oak Ridge is 1 acre. It keeps that area, the township, and its character, rather than high-density residential or even industrial.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question? Anybody from council with a question? Yep.
No, or you can stand up here, Ken.
Do it either one. I'm Ken O'Brien, 40 Park Road. All these developments, they seem like they're all going to be coming out onto Park Road, like the one down the bottom lower here, or is that going to come out on Keith Valley Road, the Tornado property?
The Tornado wouldn't be able to come out on Keith Valley because of Park Creek.
All right, so the only one that will come out on Park Road is going to be the one that's still right now commercial?
Well, there's been no plan submitted to the township, so I don't know what that property owner is going to come at us with.
Okay.
But there is more of a possibility of that possibly linking out to Park Ridge Road and then to Keith Valley. There is a possibility, but the Tornado property, they're Park Creek, they would have to build a bridge over Park Creek to get to Keith Valley, which floods all the time.
Yeah, okay.
Anyone else? Right. Well, if there's no further questions or comments, this hearing will be.
Forgive my naive question. I'm Stacy Spencer, 26 Park Road. Is there anything we can do to just say, yeah, you can develop there, but leave X amount of trees or X amount of environmental awareness, just so that
your ordinances already provide for preservation of a great deal of the woodlands. There will be trees taken down, of course, for the development, but there's also a requirement to replace those trees with other trees. And there's also buffering required in the perimeter buffer around the developments, and there'll be trees planted in there as well.
So with the higher traffic and displacement of animals, I'm just concerned with more deer getting hit and things like that, because we've already seen an increase of wildlife being displaced from other locations, so that was just a concern. Also, silly question, curious, what is that little indent off of right?
That's our neighbor's house.
No.
Oh, this?
Yeah, that little area.
That's a house. Someone lives there.
Really?
Yes. Yep.
Interesting.
It's a house, single-family home.
Yeah, right in front of them.
But I don't know where 26 usually. Are you closer to County Line Road, or are you closer?
Closer to County Line, so I'm not.
So this property here, if they come at us with the development plan, if you're familiar with it, there's a tributary well, now it's the Regency at Waterside, but the former golf club, and it comes through here. So these properties here are going to be all protected because there's an environmental resource, and they won't be able to build anything back here.
I heard that they were, so thank you for clearing that up, because I was concerned that that's going away and that's going away, and that's
You're going to have,
lot.
because I'm familiar with that creek and have walked it in my career, so you're going to have a nice buffer.
Thank you.
Yep.
I Eric or Mary, can you speak more to the tree replacement program for anyone in the audience?
I'll let Eric handle that. He reviews them.
With regard to how we determine, yeah, so, certainly any property that has trees and woodlands on it, they're protected to a certain percentage in our ordinances. And, not, a dead tree is not protected, right? So, there's the boar ash disease. So we have arborists and landscape architects in our office that will work with a developer if one comes to go through the nitty-gritty details of that during like the land development phase. And so we go out, we sample areas of the properties that are representative. We figured out what's alive, what's not, and we come up with how many trees are on that property, how many they can cut down, how many they have to save. And if they're cutting them down, they have to replace them. If they physically can't fit every single tree on the property, Township has a long history of planting them in parks and coming up with other ways to use them that benefit the community. With the tornado coming through a few years ago, there's the tree giveaway program, that kind of thing. So I think that answers.
Try it again. Are there any more questions from anybody?
Yes.
There being no further questions or comments, this hearing is now closed. Council will vote on the proposed ordinance later this evening. Next item is a public hearing on an ordinance amending the zoning code to rezone a property on Park Road from the PI Planned Industrial District to R1 Low Density Residential District and amending the zoning map. Mr. Walker, anything before I read the statement for the...
No, sir.
All right.
I didn't get that. Could you try?
Good evening. We will now call to order a hearing on an ordinance which would amend the zoning map to rezone a property fronting on Park Road in the vicinity of County Line Road and Keith Valley Road. The property consists of approximately 84 acres. It's currently zoned PI or planned industrial. There is no industrial development in the area of this property, and all other development parcels near this parcel are zoned for low-density residential development. The owner of the property asked to have the property rezoned to R1, which is our lowest density zoning classification. The staff has reviewed the request and is recommending that we change the zoning map to rezone the property identified as tax map parcel 36-00-06137-01-9 from PI to R1. This hearing has been advertised as required by law. There is no stenographer present, but please remember not to speak until you're recognized by counsel. When you are recognized, please provide your name and address for the minutes. This hearing is your opportunity to learn about the ordinance and let counsel know if you have any opinion on the proposed ordinance.
So as Mr. Whiteside stated, the staff is recommending the change. And it just makes sense at this point in the township. It was residential decades ago, and then I think it was maybe the late 70s, early 80s when it was changed from residential to PI. And right now we have all the 50 new homes on the Oak Ridge. We know the Tornetta property, though they have not submitted any plans to us. They've been zoned to R1. With the Navy base closed, the runway closed, they're clear to develop if they so choose. They were restricted by the Navy years ago from development because of the runway. That's no longer the case. So we know sometime in the future the Tornadoes are going to come or sell the property to a developer and come our way with development plans. An industrial park, the staff does not feel is a good use around all of these homes in these neighborhoods. We think matching exactly what's around the property, which is R1, is the way to go. Keep the flow, keep the character of this section of the township and the neighborhoods, rather than an industrial park that tractor trailers, noise 24/7, could be 24/7 manufacturing operations, odors from manufacturing operations. It just doesn't fit any longer like it did when it first got changed in the 1980s. the staff is just, the staff's recommending that you consider the rezoning of that track from planned industrial to R1. I don't know if Mary or Eric wants to add.
No, it's a very simple ordinance. It only does one thing, and that's rezone that one property, which is currently owned by Mr. Heffernan, sitting in the front row. But if that helps anybody else identify the property, more than the tax map parcel number.
Eric, do you have anything? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Yes, sir.
Ken O'Brien, if you're changing the ordinance.
You still need to use the microphone.
If you're changing the ordinance to residential, can we get the speed limit on Park Road changed to 25, which is a residential speed limit?
The short answer to that is yes.
We can?
Mhm.
Because they fly down the road.
There's a provision in the vehicle code that says in residential neighborhoods,
Okay,
you can zone a property for 25 miles
Okay,
an
and can
hour.
we also, that means they can hunt over there no longer?
Oh, no, that doesn't mean that.
Well, it's residential.
It won't,
think
not
what-
till the homes are built.
I think what the Game Commission laws say is that you can't hunt within 200 feet of an occupied dwelling.
They hunt all the time across from my house.
Yeah, I think the township can probably get you the number for the Game Commissioner.
Yeah, there has been no hunting allowed on that property for more than 10 years. So
They-
if there is an issue.
They do hunt over there.
Call the police.
I have.
Okay?
I don't do anything.
Okay, get them and I'll press charges.
Okay. I know who it is.
Well, when you see them, definitely give the police a call. We had some police officers that they're not game commission officers, and I know the chief's back there, but they are experts with the game commission laws and hunting laws. So they can, and we do, and those officers, they do enforce the game commission laws, so.
Any more questions? Being no further questions or comments, this hearing is now closed, and council will vote on the proposed ordinance later this evening.
And just for everyone's knowledge too, as plans are brought into the township or sent into the township, all of that is here to be viewed. You'll get letters when the planning commission is reviewing any land development plan for any of these properties. So, and I just also stay tuned to our agendas on the website, and just call us anytime. Just call the township and ask them, do they have plans? Anything's been submitted yet? And we'll let you know. And you can come here to look at them. You can come here to ask questions, but you'll be informed of the entire public process, starting with the planning commission.
Okay, so moving on, our next item is to consider an ordinance amending the zoning code, Article VI R1 Low Density Residential District to allow additional development alternatives to include an open space option. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance amending the zoning code, Article 6, R1 Low Density Residential District to allow additional development alternatives to include an open space option.
A second. Moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Glunster, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Slaff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Chunky, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next is to consider an ordinance amending the zoning code to rezone a property on Park Road from the PI Planned Industrial District to R1 Low Density Residential District and amending the zoning map. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance amending the zoning code to rezone a property on Park Road, being tax parcel 36-00-06137-01-9 from the PI Planned Industrial District to the R1 Low Density Residential District and amending the zoning map.
Second?
Moved and seconded. This also is a roll call vote.
Mr. Glunster, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Slaff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote? Ms. Chunky, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Right. The next item is to announce that Horsham Township is being recognized by College Settlement for partnering to permanently preserve the Pennypack CSA farm.
It's always nice. You don't get, we always say we don't get recognized, we don't get all the awards that we should for all the great work that this community does together. But as council knows, we were a financial partner with the county and the state to preserve the Pennypack Farm, 35 acres of open space on the College Settlement property from any future development. And because of that, College Settlement is having their annual gala this Saturday, and we have been recognized with an award for us and our participation in preserving that open space. So we talk about open space, we do what we can, but it was great to be part of preserving 35 acres of open space in town. And it's nice to be thanked for it.
Thank you. All right, next is to announce that Horsham Township is being recognized by the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Montgomery County with the 2024 President's Award for our leadership and guidance in the establishment of the Horsham Business Association.
As many of you know, the Horsham Chamber of Commerce did not survive the pandemic, and something that we had for many decades in Horsham. So we were struggling to try to form a new chamber. That did not happen. So we, and Larry Burns isn't here this evening, but he's our Director of Community and Economic Development. He started discussions with the Greater Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce to see if they could help us. And they agreed to do a sort of like a sub-chamber, but we call it the Horsham Business Association. And it's gone very well. We have a manager for it, and we almost have now about 100 businesses, 100 companies in Horsham Township that have become members. So it's still growing. It's in its initial year, but it's growing quickly. We're very pleased with it, and we think it's really important in Horsham that we have that local connection to our businesses, and our businesses have the local connection to its government, to the community, and you don't have that with a wider, larger chamber. So we were glad to get this off, and we're thankful of the chamber too, but they are recognizing us tomorrow evening at their gala for taking the leadership in establishing the Horsham Business Association for our businesses and companies in Horsham.
Thank you for that. Next will be an opportunity for questions and comments from the public. Anybody have any questions on anything?
I do. I think we're gonna have photos. So I received a email from a resident and just wanted to note and commend our Public Works Department for the work that they did. So a resident reached out over the weekend. As we all know, we've been experiencing a drought. So this creek most recently looks like this. That is the same view of the same waterway within Horsham. When they reached out, it wasn't quite this bone dry yet, but there were fish in that creek and asked if there was anything we could do to relocate the fish. Our Public Works Department was out the next business morning to do that, to relocate those fish. Some had passed. There was the Circle of Life. Some turkey buzzards enjoyed a feast. But for the most part, we were able to save those fish. And I feel like that's really the work of, our local departments interacting and acting quickly. So just wanted to send a thank you to our Public Works Department for their quick work. And I really hope we get a lot more rain very soon. Thank you.
That's an incredible visual on how dry it is right now.
And so to follow up, the same resident I saw at the library reception that was held on Saturday. And he noted that he had some photos, and I asked if they could share them with me. And I really think that is a remarkable visual for people to understand what a drought looks like, why we have a burn ban. And we were talking tonight, while there isn't necessarily a technical water conservation, if people could stop watering their lawns for now, that would be really great. Thank you.
Else? The next item would be approve the minutes from October 9th and October 28th. We
I move to, ooh, go ahead.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next is the treasurer's report.
The balance in the general fund as of October 31st, 2024 is $5,585,482.88. For the most part, the expenses and revenues in all funds reflect normal activity. For October, as of the end of the month, we have received 106.06% of budgeted revenue and have expended 80.06% of budgeted expenses. We are currently in our budget season, and we are monitoring our year-to-date and year-end projection figures as we work on our proposed 2025 budget. For a more detailed presentation of our current financial position, I would refer you to your monthly booklet.
We have a motion to pay the bills.
I move to approve the list of checks in all funds in the amount of $664,707.46, and further move to authorize payment of same. I move to ratify the U.S. Bank credit card transactions for the month of October 2024 in the amount of $9,955.46.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next would be consider amending the Horsham Township grant application to the Military Remediation and Infrastructure Authority. Mr. Walker.
So as council knows, we submitted our grant application to Myria in May for certain projects. One which we did not include that we would like to add to the application is a new signal at Horsham Road and Tournament Drive. This is in front of the high school. It's a not only a modernization of a signal that's very old, it does not have all the state-of-the-art systems built into it, but also our best corporate center is right across the street. As we know, Johnson & Johnson, they have 1,800 employees in the Commonwealth Corporate Center at one location. They just spent $160 million on a new building and renovating 2 other buildings. We do have the self-storage facility under construction where the Joseph's Catering is. As part of their approved land development, they are putting in black ornamental street lamps along Horsham Road, from Babylon Road down all the way down along the front of the high school, and then stopping where the residential homes are. So this signal will look like the signal at Horsham and Drescher, the black ornamental one. So it would really add to the corporate center, show them that we care too, that we really enjoy them in Horsham Township and having 1,800 employees, making their gateway into their buildings and their campuses look very nice. Also, it'll modernize the signal, so maybe, just maybe, at 7 to 7:30 a.m. on Horsham Road during the school year, we can flow traffic a little bit better. It'll match the pedestrian lamps, the street lamps that will be installed as part of the project under construction. So, and the Myria, this is an intersection for the base redevelopment, so the Myria, the authority can cover the expenses for the signal. So we'd like to add that to our, amend our application. So, and it's a 2-year, as council is well aware, the days when it was 6 months to get a new signal in, it's 2 years now. It's not it's the new normal. So it's no longer supply chains, it's no longer pandemic excuses, it's just the new normal. So Gilmore has started the engineering and design for the signal, and we would expect that the signal would be installed in 2026.
Thank you, Bill. All right, so to be clear, this is us amending our grant application to ask for additional funds from Myria to cover this signal.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion?
I move to authorize amending the Military Installation Remediation and Infrastructure Authority grant application for 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next item's going to be the 2025 manager's budget presentation. Bill, at one point you suggested a break here.
It's up
Do
to
you want
you.
to just keep going?
I can keep going.
Just want to do. All right,
Oh, yes.
Mary and Eric, yeah.
I got to pull up the right one here. Thanks, Dennis. You ready? Okay, so this is to go over our 2025 budget. Just some demographics about Horsham. We're 17.3 square miles. We have, right now, we're over 20, this is our 2020 census, 26,564, but currently we're already over 27,000 residents. Our 5 buildings are the municipal building, the police station, the library, the public works facility, and the community center. We have 92.6 miles of township-owned roads, 870 acres of parks and open space. That includes 6 community parks and 9 neighborhood playgrounds. We have almost 13 miles of trails, including the 5.24-mile Powerline Trail. Some of our accomplishments in 2024, we had our Easter egg hunt, our Citizens Police Academy, Horsham Day, National Night Out, Restaurant Week, Carpenter Cross Race, Eco-Vent, which was brand new this year, Project Blue Light, Freezer 5K, Farmers Market, our comprehensive plan, and paving project. As council knows, we've been working since May to put solar energy into all of our facilities. That is ongoing. I am happy to report that as of November 6th, our library is on 100% solar energy. So they were the first to get switched over, and our company, our contractors working to get all of our facilities turned over. So hopefully by the end of the year, all of our buildings will be on solar power. And just to go back to that, we will be the first municipality in Montgomery County where all of our facilities are on solar power. The library, which is 20 years old this year, we gave it 2 gifts. We put a new roof on and we put new facade on. So you can see in the middle photo what the cedar wood had become after 20 years, and you can see above what the new siding looks like. We've been retrofitting many of our basins that were built in the 80s and 90s and that just were mowed. So we're retrofitting them for water quality and water quantity and stormwater control. So we started off a couple years ago with the Whitmer Road Basin. This year we did the Forester Road Basin and the Whetstone Road Basin retrofits. They are complete. We added one thing that we're trying to sustain our office park. Our I would say our bread and butter in taxes is our office parks. And they've taken a big hit since the pandemic for multiple reasons. Companies downsizing, companies working from home, companies closing, companies moving. We are headed in the right direction. I'm happy to report at the lowest level of vacancy, we were at 62%. We're at 70% now. So these projects that we're doing are making us more and more attractive to companies. So we are headed back in the right direction, and hopefully that continues. But part of it was this is now we call the Pennsylvania Lifestyle Campus. We changed the zoning to allow apartments. We changed it to allow commercial and retail on the perimeter, and that's happened. So now we need walkability, even in the evenings and nighttime. Many of us that grew up here in the 80s and 90s, when 5 p.m. hit, the tumbleweed was blowing across Gibraltar Road and Whitmer Road, and things just went dark until 8 a.m. the next morning. So that type of office park model doesn't work anymore. So we added 85 pedestrian lamps on Drescher, Gibraltar, Prudential, and some on Whitmer Road. And it's really made the office park look a lot different in the evening hours. And actually, you see people taking advantage of it. So you see people that live in Evergreen Terrace, the 555 flats, they're walking their dogs, they're walking at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So we're proud of that project. Another project that, of course, we're partnering with Myria on is the Route 611 and Moreland Avenue intersection improvements. This was a $2 million project, and we hope actually the signal goes on its normal cycle tomorrow. So PennDOT will be out tomorrow, and we hope that that signal will be operational tomorrow. And that'll make that intersection a lot safer. 258, 248 Eastern Road, these are two properties acquired by the Township in Myria in preparation for the redevelopment of the base and possibly the widening of 611. And when I say the widening of 611, we don't know exactly what's going to happen to 611, but some of these properties along 611, they're so shallow, they're so small. Even if we were going to do a bike lane, a new sidewalk, and lamps, there's nothing left of the property. So all of them nothing was condemned. We reached agreements with the property owners, friendly agreements, and so those two properties came down, and we would just hold on to them until we know what's happening to 611 and the redevelopment of the base. So the eco event, this was our first time doing this. Kudos to Mr. Haggerty and Kyle Lynch for being the leaders, organizing all the volunteers. It was a great turnout. We do have more money in our budget for more trees for 2025. We started, we were supposed to start at 9 o'clock. Dennis, 8 o'clock, they started showing up for the trees. And by 9:15, 9:20, we were out of trees. And we had a shredding event going on. We had e-waste. I forget how many pounds of e-waste. A lot. So it was a real successful event. The people were very nice. Even when we ran out of trees, they weren't angry. They were just like, shucks, I got to get here earlier next year. So it was a nice event. We are continuing to fund all engineering costs related to the Miracle Field and the Horsham soccer field, turf field. That's wrapping up, the turf field, so that we're closing that project out. The kids are on it, having a blast. Field hockey's using it. It's really turned out to be a multi-purpose field, and so probably won't see this on next year because we're closing that project out. Blair Mill Road widening project. So phase 2 is under construction. We're wrapping up utility relocation. Up by the Wawa and the CVS is actually road construction happening now. They hope to move down to Whitmer Road and Commerce Drive when the utility companies are out of the way. As council knows, we were supposed to be in full construction mode in May or June. We started utility relocation in April of last year. There is no regulatory arm, enforcement arm that the township has to make these utility companies, that PennDOT has, to make these utility companies move any faster. Just on the poles alone, there's 15 utility companies. That's not the underground utilities. So those wires, those black wires that you see, 15 utility companies. Some of them, their closest employee is 4 hours away. So it has been a challenge and a half to try to get these utility companies to move their lines. So I'm happy to report we're down to the last 2 or 3. So hopefully, if the weather stays like the way it is, and we don't want that to happen, we want rain, but we'll have road construction starting even at Whitmer, Commerce, and Blair Mill in the next couple months. Horsham Road and Limekiln Pike, that project, we are also down to our last few properties for right-of-way acquisition. As you know, there's 41 properties affected by this project. We've acquired all of them through friendly acquisitions and negotiations with the property owners. We have not had to condemn any properties, and we're that's the way Horsham is, and it's worked well. So hopefully, first quarter of next year, we'll go out to bid, award a contract in the summer, do our pre-construction meetings in the fall, and reality is probably 2026 will be utility relocation, and then actual road construction happening in 2027. We added two new, as council chose these new park signs, we added Kohler Park and Chestnut Creek Park this year. We have our Centennial Zoo Jaguar at our library. So we supported the Elmwood Park Zoo in their Centennial, and it's become a really popular thing at the library, and it was great to support the zoo. If you haven't been there, you should go check it out, of the amazing work that they've done. These are charitable contributions that the township provides some financial assistance to, because they provide assistance to Horsham Township residents. So it's nice that we can financially support these groups and organizations, but these are the list for 2025. So our proposed 2025 budget is $22,140,491. The real estate tax rate remains at 2.23 mils. We have a balanced budget and a no tax increase. Presentation over. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No one's going anywhere. So just to talk a little bit about the budget. So the 2025 budget, it's about a 3% increase from 2024, $662,224. Out of that 3% increase, we gave them exactly what they asked for and that they requested. Speaking of the Horsham Fire Company, that we had them here before, for them to keep Battalion 2 open, to keep their current staff level, to keep the current response time, they needed an additional $340,000 for 2025, which we supplied them in the budget. So if you look at the township side of it, our increase is really $322,224. So a 1.5% increase from 20. If you take the fire company portion out, it's a 1.5% increase, and that's a credit to our department heads and our staff watching every penny that we have to spend. So how much does our budget go to the police department? So 47%. So 47% of our total budget goes to the police department. And that's very common in every township. It's the largest department. It's one of the most important departments. And so that's not uncommon. Our public works department is 16%. So if you look at our $22 million budget, 63% goes to two departments. And that's not uncommon. People like to live in a low crime, safe community. They like their roads paved. They like their roads plowed and salted, and their parks maintained and their trails maintained. So that's not these figures aren't uncommon. It's just what our budget is and where the money goes. A home assessed in Horsham, the average assessed home in Horsham in 2025 is $197,470, which pays a total of $8,137.35 in taxes. I wish to Horsham Township, but that doesn't happen. So you can see the breakout of our dollar. So out of that money, you can see the breakout. The first is the school district, which is 82.02%. Montgomery County, 11.62%. The community college, 0.95%. And then the township at the end, 5.41% of the taxes that a average homeowner pays in Horsham. Those are all 2024 figures. The county hasn't said what their rates are going to be in 2025. So we always like to show these graphs as how we compare to other townships. You can see on the left the township and their population underneath of them. The yellow is the tax millage, and then the dark is the square miles for that township. So you can see, the size of other townships around us. We're the largest, and except for Lower Gwinnett, we are the cheapest in millage for real estate tax. Just a quick explanation of our funds. Our general fund is basically our day-to-day operations, all the overhead, all the employees. The capital improvement fund is where we do capital projects. This fund funds most of all the capital projects in town. The park improvement fund is a fund where fees from development go into, and we improve the parks and the trail system with money in that fund. The state aid fund is our liquid fuels, is the gas tax. So it's our portion of the gas tax, and by the way, we do not get our fair share back in gas tax, but this is the fund that we use to pave the roads, so we get back money from the state. The streetlight fund, that's just a fund where people that have streetlights, if they have a streetlight within 250 feet of their property, they're assessed a certain fee for streetlight maintenance. And then the outfall fund is another fund, fees paid by developers for us to maintain our stormwater control system in town. Again, our proposed budget for 2025 remains at 2.23 mils. There's no tax increase. At the bottom is the breakout of where the money goes. So the average assessed person in property owner in Horsham pays $440.36 a year. Out of the breakdown, 0.695 mils is for general purposes. 0.47 mils go to the library. The fire has 0.745 mils, and the parks has 0.32 mils. What we're recommending is an increase. We reduced the general to give the fire company the $340,000 that they need for 2025. We reduced the general purpose millage and gave that to the fire company to get them to that $340,000. So you'll see that in the manager's message in your budget books. Our other taxes that are not going up, but the earned income tax rate at 1%, local services tax at $52. The hydrant tax rate is 0.03 mils. Again, that's anyone that has a hydrant within 250 feet of their home. And then a streetlight assessment, if someone has a streetlight within 250 feet of their home, they get assessed 59 cents a foot along their frontage of their property. Our revenue, this is where our revenue comes from. As you can see, the gold is our earned income tax. That is our greatest amount. That's down since the pandemic. We've lost over 7 figures. This year, we don't have to raise taxes, or not proposing to raise taxes in 2025, but we did have one of the largest tax increases since 1989 this year in 2024, and it was primarily because of the loss of income of earned income tax, people working from home. What I said earlier, companies closing, moving, downsizing, really hit us in this year, was the first year that it really hit us hard. I don't expect that to get any better any real time soon. It takes a while to attract companies, and we are out there, as you know, working very hard nationwide to attract companies to come back to Horsham. These are just statements that you've heard. We've been sounding the alarm since 2020 about our revenue situation. It's not keeping pace with the growth, services, and maintenance in the future. Outlook is expected to see continued growth in expenditures, further decline in revenues is anticipated, and additional revenue sources are needed to continue day-to-day services. and the impact, inflation has impacted, and as I just mentioned, earned income tax and local services tax are the two, and I've been saying for not many years, but we are entering in at different times, and we are no longer going there, we are in it. So times are different for us with revenue. So this is our millage history. You can see our mills and what happened in 1997 is the earned income tax. So prior to that time, we did not have earned income tax, and we were able to, with the earned income tax, the township was able to drop the real estate tax almost to nothing. And we've been creeping up, as you see, primarily because of the pandemic and those other issues I've talked about. Another millage comparison of communities around us. Their communities are their names, their populations underneath them, and then their millage rates. So you can see, again, Lower Gwinnett, they have half the number of residents that we do. They have, and the next slide is going to show you their staff. They're much smaller in size than we are in square miles, so they do have a lower real estate tax rate than we do. Here's the employee comparison. There you go, Lower Gwinnett right next to us. So you can see that their total employees are half. So they have 40 full-time employees total, 18 police officers and 22 other staff members. This year we have 40 police officers, 25 other staff members. So you can see the differences, and we're proud that we don't show this to, but we show it because we're proud and how we're able to stretch the dollar and what our staff is able to do for the community, the Horsham community. What's so different than us than some of these other communities that have way many employees and higher taxes? Not much. So we were able to balance a budget, and one way we were able to do it was keeping these 4 positions unfunded. So we have a police clerk that we did not fund. We have an administrative clerk that we did not fund in the budget, a part-time fire marshal, and then a special events coordinator. So we were able to balance the budget and come up with the budget plan we did, but those four positions remain unfunded for 2025. Some of our capital expenditures for 2025, the Pennypack Creek Stream Bank Restoration Project. We're going to overlay the Maple Park Trail. Going to give Cedar Hill Road Park its new park sign. The basketball court at Lukens Park needs to be resurfaced. Not that it's that old, but it's puddling. It's settled, so it puddles, and the coloring is coming up. So it's a risk management liability issue, safety issue for people playing on the court. So we have that in the budget. We're replacing one of our large public works dump trucks. Those size dump trucks usually last 20, 25 years for us, and then we replace them. A public works tractor, 1974 tractor, we have to finally replace. Replace 2 police vehicles. Our finance department needs a new software package. The software company they use, the owners retired and they sold the company. So the finance department is out looking at software for the department. Our large truck lift, as you know, we have 2 awesome mechanics in Public Works. The large truck lift broke and needs to be replaced so they can continue fixing those trucks and the larger equipment. And then a new credit card system, which we'll be implementing. Right now, we have very limited capability with credit cards of what people can do when they come into the township building. We're expanding all of that for code enforcement, for permits, online. So we'll have a new credit card system in place for people to use for convenience if they so choose. Some of our projects, the Horsham Road Bridge engineering will be wrapped up next year. That's the bridge over Park Creek on Horsham Road. That has to be replaced and widened as soon as the intersection gets done. I think we're trying to time the bridge replacement with the Limekill Pike Horsham Road intersection project all at the same time. So we don't finish the intersection project and everyone says, great, after 2 years, 2.5 years, the road's finally open, and then we shut it down again for the bridge replacement. So, by the way, the road's never going to be closed. It's always going to be open, just lane restrictions. But we're going to try to get them done at the same time, which most governments aren't known for doing and planning right. We're going to try to get it right this time. And then once the intersection's done and the bridge is done, then we just have between the township building and the bridge to make it 5 lanes, and then the bridge to Babylon Road to make it 5 lanes. So, that'll be, the engineering will be completed next year. Horsham and Limekill, we already talked about that, and the schedule for that. Blair Mill Road construction, phase 2 ending. Phase 3 engineering will be done next year, and hopefully we'll be going out to bid, so we can actually start that in 2026. Phase 3 will just be the last phase of Blair Mill Road, which will widen Blair Mill to 5 lanes between the traffic lights, between Welsh Road and 611. So when Phase 3 is done, Blair Mill Road will be 5 lanes between Welsh Road and Easton Road. The paving of Deep Meadow Park parking lot is one of our capital projects. We want to continue on the street lamps and pedestrian lamps that we mentioned. So we have the next section on Drescher Road between Whitmer Road and Walnut Grove Drive planned for 2025. The library is 20 years old, so all the equipment is 20 years old. So the library needs a new HVAC air conditioning condenser. And believe it or not, it's $100,000. But we got to get it in before the summer heat, and so that's a capital expense. Butternut Drive pipe job. We're trying to help some homes on Butternut, even though we haven't gotten any rain. We're trying to help with stormwater control. That, as we know, that development was built in the 40s and 50s, and we're trying to help with a pipe project there to reduce some of the flooding that the people experience during heavy rain events. The Drescher Road, New Road, Sawmill Lane traffic signal, that signal should be shipped out the end of this month, and it should be installed in the first quarter of next year. The Horsham Road Tournament Drive traffic signal, we talked about that. The Route 309 and English Village traffic signal, that's being modernized too. That's a signal that we share with Montgomery Township, so we split the cost. So it's 50-50. We have an agreement with Montgomery Township, so we split the cost on that signal. As you know, we're underway for the Route 611 corridor improvement plan, and we have been meeting. The committees and stakeholders and steering committee have been meeting. We hope to have that plan done by the end of next year. And what's really cool about that process right now is it's a clean sheet of paper. So the committee and the stakeholders are meeting, and we're looking at 611 without any restrictions. Pedestrian movement, public transportation movement. Is it 7 lanes? Is it 1 lane? Is it roundabouts? Is there a pedestrian bridge over 611 to get to the new town center in the future? We are looking at everything from a clean slate. And it's pretty exciting that some of the thoughts that the people are coming up with. I've told them, don't worry about money. Don't worry about funding. Worry about a functional 611 when the redevelopment is finished. So if it's gridlocked, we failed. If the traffic doesn't move. So we should have that plan done by the end of 2025. The Davis Grove Road Culvert Project, that's a culvert that we've repaired but needs to be replaced on Davis Grove. tree planting at Deep Meadow and Cedar Hill Road parks. So we got money from the state to help private property owners cover some of their expense regarding Hurricane Ida and the tornado that came through Horsham. We had money left over, so we requested the state if we could use, because we as council knows, we lost hundreds of trees. I don't even know how many in our open space and parks when the tornado came through. And if we could use it to replant trees, and they actually surprisingly agreed and said yes. So, but we have to use it before the end of next year. So we also know, and we've committed that in Deep Meadow Park with the Miracle Field, that we would replace trees. Because a lot of trees are being cut down or will be removed for the construction of the Miracle Field. In addition, at Cedar Hill Road, we're going to have a number of trees removed because a detention basin has to be built in the park for the Horsham Road Limekill Pike intersection improvement project. So we're going to use these monies that we have. We'll be a little ahead of the game, which is unusual, but we'll be ahead. We're going to use the money to plant trees in the spring and next fall in Deep Meadow and Cedar Hill in preparation of losing the trees that we will for the Miracle Field and the detention basin. The Mary Dare Courtyard at the library, that's another project that we're working at getting going. I think it will really add to everything that we've done at the library with the siding and new look at the library. We have the Friends of the Horsham Library have committed $20,000 to the project. The Horsham Rotary Club has committed $6,500 to the project. So, and I'm going to go out, if anyone knows Mary Dare, she was well connected in the township with many nurseries, landscapers, concrete contractors. So I'm going to reach out to some of those companies that Mary knew very well, and they knew Mary, and see if they would do some in-kind contributions for us for the concrete work and the landscaping work. Some park improvements. We always like to add different things to our park system. So at Lucan's Park at Everybody's Playground, we're going to be adding a communication board. If you ever go out there, there's a lot of nonverbal children that use the playground. So the idea came to the staff of adding a communication board for those children and their parents and their friends. So we'll be adding this communication board next year to Everybody's Playground. And the dog park, you can see some of the features here that this is what we'll be adding to the dog park for the dogs to have some playtime. Very popular dog park. If you've ever gone there, it's pretty amazing how popular it is. So our 2025 paving project includes these following roads: Greenwoods, Beaver Hill Road, Forester, Firewood, Cedarbrook Drive. They're all off Sawyer's Way. Westmoreland from 522, which is just before the driveway. It's basically where they stopped paving for the new intersection project. So we'll take that where they finished out to Maple Avenue. Babylon Road from Horsham Road to Sheet Drive, primarily in front of the stadium and Simmons Elementary School. Lower State Road, it's not going into 63. It's going from Horsham Road to Squires Drive. So Squires Drive to Horsham Road for Lower State Road. Hideaway Hills, Marietta Drive, Joseph Road, Lois Road, Bywood Road, Prospect Avenue, and also the other section of Babylon Road from Horsham Road to Davis Grove Road. So those are the roads for paving for 2025. Another project that we're going to start working on is a asphalt trail. If you're familiar, I know you're familiar with the asphalt trail in front of Lucan's Park on Drescher Road. On that side of Drescher Road, it's always been the plan to put an asphalt trail rather than a sidewalk. We're putting a sidewalk in on the opposite side of Drescher Road, so it gives people an option. Some people don't like to walk or run on a sidewalk, so this will be an option, and also keep our office parks an attraction to companies. So this would be a project that next year, all we're going to do next year is get the easements. So this is all private property. So we had to get easements from the private property owners to construct a trail on their properties. So what we're going to do next year is design the trail on paper, meet with the property owners, and get the trail easements from them. And then in 2026, as time and budget allows, our own Public Works Department will start to put the trail in. We've already talked about Horsham Road and Limeco Pike. We talked about Phase 3 for Blair Mill Road. Economic development, we're going to have our 6th restaurant week in 2025. We're going to continue our advertising and marketing of Horsham nationwide. We're going to bring back the state of Horsham. I don't think it's not a luncheon, it'll be a breakfast. I think it's February 11th is what the date is. We're going to continue the HOPS, the Business Park Shuttle Bus Program. We're going to do a township tour. As you know, we hired a national site selector last December to help us start to attract major employers to Horsham from around the country. And we've asked him, what are we not doing? What do we have to do next? And he said, you have to get in their faces. You have to be face-to-face in person. So we have budgeted, along with Miria, for Larry Burns to go to 1 or 2 conferences somewhere in the country where these conferences are, where these companies are that we want to get face-to-face with. Beautification project at 298 Welsh, which we'll talk about. Promotional video. We want to, again, utilize tools to, why is Horsham an attractive place? Why do you want your company to come to Horsham? Why do you want your employees to live in Horsham? So we're going to produce a promotional video. And as we said, we got our national site selector on board. Another thing that we thought was pretty cool and could generate community pride is, if many of you might have known or heard of Cats Meow. So some of these, the White Marsh Cemetery, Christmas Village, which is now gone on 6/11, the Happel Horsham High School, the Naval Air Station Main Gate, and 2 others in Happer, but close by, Crooked Billet, the old Crooked Billet, and the Old Mill Inn. And these are just some examples of what we're talking about. No tax dollars is going to this. So we slowly want to start sort of like a Horsham store that, again, to generate pride in the community. So we have budgeted in the Park and Rec Fund. That's the fund where we bring in some money from movie tickets and recreation programs that the library does, and we'll sell these. We'll start, I think, 3 or 6 next year, and then we'll sell them here and generate some community pride. And it's pretty cool when you have residents that have these now. They used to be sold at the old Horsham Square Pharmacy and the Christmas Village. So we think it'll be something that can be popular and fun to do, and which will start next year. So this is our budget timeline. So on the 28th, we put out the budget to council, but we also put it on the website. Tonight's the 13th. We'll review again, check in with it on the 25th, and then December 11th is your date to adopt the budget for 2025. Again, our budget summary, conservative budgeting practices, we're going to continue them. Maintaining our infrastructure, that's what we do. We don't let it fall apart. We don't do new things if we don't have the money to. If the infrastructure is all taken care of, then we do new things. We have maintain our health reserve funds for our capital fund, our roads, our parks. Maintain our high bond rating, AA1. Which I wasn't able to put on this agenda, but I will on the next agenda. We just got our Moody's update, and we remain at AA1. So sometime in the future, when the base starts, we'll hopefully go to AAA. They've already told us the only reason why we're not at the highest bond rating, credit rating, is because of that hole in our town called the Willow Grove base. So we have a balanced budget. We're maintaining the quality of life, the services, and we're moving the township forward. And these are just some things again, these are not built into the 2025 budget, but it's just to talk about, planning for the future, ideas for the future. We talked about the asphalt trail along Drescher Road already. One idea of branding that we haven't been able to get to is wrapping the traffic control boxes. You see a lot of that down at the shore towns, but also Pottstown does it. There's other communities that do it. Phoenixville does it. And it's pretty attractive looking, so we want to get into that too in the future. We want to finish off paving parking lots in Horsham, the parking lots, the Power Line Trail lot off Drescher Road, Wayne Avenue Park's parking lot, and the Chestnut Creek Park, which is the Hawks football fields. It's just not cheap paving parking lots. In fact, the one up at the Hawks is like $300,000 to do in-house. So again, it's just ideas for the future, planning for the future, keeping our lifestyle campus and office parks attractive, installing grass islands with trees on them on Gibraltar, Whitmer, Prudential. We've always talked about a possible amphitheater at Cedar Hill Road Park, trail from Chestnut Creek Park to Limekill Pike, update our park recreation and open space comprehensive plan. It's far outdated. I think it's 2003 is our last plan. So we're going to try to get a state grant. They're very expensive to do, well into the six figures to do a plan. So we're going to try to get a state grant next year to update our plan starting in 2026, and then it's a 2-year process to update the plan. A playground at Chestnut Creek Park. A lot of families have asked that live in that section of the township to have access to a playground, and all the kids that play in the Hawks and lacrosse that use the park, they could have that. Their little kids that don't play would have something to do. Again, ideas and planning for the future, beautification projects at Easton and Blair Mill Road intersection, Horsham and Drescher Road intersection, the circle at the library, replacement of the Deep Meadow Park Little League Association clubhouse, restriping Drescher Road between Business Center Drive and Welsh Road for a center turn lane. The width is there on the road. It just needs to be restriped. Additional banners for our pedestrian lamps. Cedar Hill Road Park, a pavilion with restrooms similar to Carpenter Park's pavilion and Lucan's Park pavilion. Extend the Power Line Trail to Lower State Road. And here's, again, just ideas. If we get this special events coordinator on, the staff is just maxed out. All the events that we do throughout the year. The staff, we know the staff has no more time to do any special events and coordinate. A lot goes into them. It seems like they're easy to do, but the logistics and everything that goes on behind the scenes is a lot of work. So when we do have the money and this person does come on, we'd like to get into concerts in the park. One really great event that we had in our tricentennial was the Winterfest event that we had in January. I don't know if it's ever going to get cold enough again, like in 2017, but I hope it does, and we'd love to start an annual thing. But again, we're maxed out. The staff is maxed out with what they can handle and do, the current staff level. We're trying to work with the Horsham Connected group to do a nonprofit local civic organization fair in January. I hope that comes together. We've talked about an arts festival, a music festival, and dining under the stars and bringing a flea market back that we did decades ago. All these popular things that, we have Larry out there. We talk about economic development, but we're missing some things that would make us even more attractive to families, and bring us closer together as a community. And when people have asked me, like, well, where are you going to have an arts festival or music or dining under the stars? And if you just think of Gibraltar Road. It's a township road, so we can close that road whenever we want to. And in the weekends, it's not, the companies are closed. So you close off Gibraltar Road, you have oak trees lining both sides for shade. There's a lot of logistics planning, but you have seas of blacktop of parking that are empty that could be used for people to come. And you just line Gibraltar Road with artists and tents and a stage for music, maybe down Prudential Road where the patio is. And dining underneath the stars, same thing. All you got to do is set up the tables and chairs, and logistics to be worked out with restrooms and all that. But we can do it. We have locations. We can make things happen. Just need more staff to help. So again, these are just ideas and planning for the future. So this is, as council is well aware, this is what council chose for the Welsh Road, Drescher Road beautification project. So it's going to be, we don't have a cost estimate yet. We're waiting on that from the architect. But what you all requested, this is the final rendering. The landscape architect is putting a cost estimate together. It's a sizable project, just this landscape feature. At the same time, we want to modernize that traffic signal. At the same time, we want to make sure sidewalks are connected down Drescher Road, that we have pedestrian lamps. So we're estimating, I'm guessing it's $2 million plus for this project. So we want to get that cost estimate from the landscape architect, and then we want to meet with our state rep and state senator, share with them the vision, share with them what we'd like to do. It's multimodal with pedestrian movement, it's economic development for the office park, and help, seek some state grants to make it happen. Looking forward, we are impacted by inflation. We are impacted by a stabilized and decreased revenue. It's imperative that we continue our conservative budgeting practices, and at the same time it's critical that we don't lose sight of Horsham's vision and long-term goals as we address short-term challenges. Questions? I'm done, so.
611 Steering Committee. What? You want to go home? Who is on the steering committee, and when are those meetings happening?
There's no scheduled meetings on a regular basis. So the stakeholders is a large group. There's PennDOT, there's SEPTA, Warrington Township, which is the township manager, Upper Moreland Township, the township manager, Representative Serrato, Senator Collette, Bill Whiteside's on it, Todd Stevens, the chair of MIRIA, is on it, Mike Shinton, the executive director of the HLRA, is on it, I'm on it, Eric Garton, the township engineer, Michael Baker has the job, so their full crew is on it. The Montgomery County Planning Commission, so Molly Bice, who's will be our land planner from the County Planning Commission, Matt Edmond, the associate director of the County Planning Commission, is on it. So it's a large group.
On Davis Grove Road, is that the culvert kind of in the middle of where, wait, I'm not thinking of Davis Grove, I was thinking of Kansas. Where's the culvert?
Between Willowbrook and Babylon.
For the two roads that are being paved that would be in front of schools, in front of Simmons and on the sort of front side of Hollowell, will those be in times that would not impact both school and the camps?
Yes.
Okay.
99% of the time, our paving project starts after the last day of school and ends before the first day of school.
Excellent. And easements along Drescher, do we anticipate any barriers or holdouts for that to happen? I know you don't know for sure.
There's
but-
only, actually, believe it or not, that whole stretch is only 4 property owners.
Okay.
And the one that I'm worried about the most is Penn Mutual, because they
they're
have,
unknown,
they're
right?
unknown. They're now primarily working from home, but they did open up a smaller office in Conshohocken.
Okay.
So, but they're in limbo, so I don't know if they're going
Some
to
unknown.
be as working with us as they have been when they were here.
Has Horsham Business, so you talked about the Community Civic Organization Fair, Arts Festival. Has the Horsham Business Association ever had talk about doing a job fair in the community?
No, they have not yet.
Okay.
Larry and I have talked
Talk to them
about
tomorrow.
that.
Okay. I think that's it. Oh, no, sorry. The corner project, I know that's just a vision sketch. Are there bollards planned? Like if someone is sitting on that bench and vehicular
Yeah, we
traffic?
haven't gotten that far
Okay,
yet.
all right.
But
Thank you.
yes, that's a good thought. That's a very good
So when-
thought.
I know there's going to
Yes.
be a traffic light, but just, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And thank you. The presentation was really comprehensive, and I just love the vision for the future in Horsham. So thank you for putting it together. I know it's a lot of work.
Welcome. Thank you.
I have one question on the fire department and the monies going toward them. Is that, so that's just part of our regular tax, it is not the additional, the tax, the fire EMS response tax?
Correct. Well, no, they don't. Well, they don't do tax. So the Act 37, the Medicare reimbursement.
No, but you, isn't,
During one of the presentations,
And she showed that millage rate out of our general budget.
Out of our budget, we give that much to them.
isn't there a separate like fire tax on your tax, on your?
during the DCED presentation, I think they referred to that, but I don't know that that's the case on our tax
Yeah,
bill. That it's,
yeah,
it's not a separate line item.
I forget at the fire. Yeah, it is broken out. It is broken out, itemized on your tax bill.
It
But
retracts
we
my
don't.
comment.
We don't give that money to them directly. We act as their payroll company. So we actually pay their employees. They're not township employees. So we act as their payroll agent. So the money, we don't cut them a check. So we cut their career staff paychecks using that fire tax, using that fire money.
So it's a, never mind. Okay.
So your question is if that fire tax line goes up but it's not because the budget is balanced, so it wouldn't be an increase in millage. I do.
At least someone gets me.
And in the 5-year plan, which is also part of the budget, in the 5-year plan, we've plugged in monies for 4, and that's what they say they need in the next 5 years, 4 additional full-time career staff. And those monies are plugged in the 5-year plan.
Anything else?
Oh, one more question. Because this goes back to their presentation earlier where they were saying that one way that we can like help to balance and or supplement the fire department budget, like moving forward, because they'll need those additional. So like, will we increase that portion of the tax?
Yes.
Then to cover it, the fire.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, maybe. It depends on if there's additional revenue sources that you don't have to take it from real estate. You can take it from a different pot of revenue. So it doesn't have to come from the real estate tax. If you want to, if in the future sometime there's revenue in a different pot that you want to take from and give that to them, that can happen too. So it doesn't have to be a real estate tax.
I think I'm done.
The next item is to introduce the 2025 budget and tax levy ordinance. Do we have a motion?
I move to introduce the 2025 budget and tax levy ordinance and hereby authorize advertisement of same.
Moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Glemser, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Laff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wade, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Chunky, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
And before we wrap up, we have a few announcements. The next Horsham Township Council meeting will be on Monday, November the 25th at 7 p.m. in this auditorium. Our Project Blue Light is Tuesday, December 10th at 6:30 at the Horsham Community Center. Pack the Patrol Car is on Saturday, December the 14th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Horsham Giant. And the Freezer 5K Run Walk is on Sunday, December the 15th from 8:30 a.m. at 8:30 a.m. at Simmons Elementary School. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.